3月26日、日本時間、そして3月25日、米国時間、ESPN-MLB のニュース番組、フォールテリトリーと、ピッチング忍者は、静かな議論の中で、現代野球の最も繊細で危ういテーマに光を当てていた。それは、速さと寿命の間で揺れる投手たちの運命である。ロブ・フリードマンは語る。若い投手たちは、レーダーガンの数字に未来を託し、時に肩やラブラムを犠牲にしてでも頂点へ駆け上がろうとする。しかし、本当に価値があるのは、メジャーへたどり着く速さなのか、それとも長く輝き続けるキャリアなのか、その問いはスタジオに静かな余韻を残した。現代の投球は、もはや単なる剛速球の競争ではない。多彩な球種、精密なコマンド、そして打者の予測を裏切る戦略。ポールス・キーンズのように速度を調整しながら支配力を高める姿は、新時代の象徴として語られた。さらに、スローモーションカメラや AI、バイオメカニクス研究は投手を新たな次元へ押し上げている。その礎を築いたトム、ハウスやカイル、ボディの名前も、静かな敬意とともに紹介された。そして議論は、やがて一つの存在へ収束する。佐々木朗希の未来、大谷翔平の異次元の才能。彼らはただの投手ではない。野球という物語の次の明らそのものなのだ。続きはぜひ番組で見届けてほしい。
It's about your son Jack and how this set you on the journey. He went from 77 to 95 and then he ended up having labrum's issues. The first thing that's brought up when I was in AAA talking to young pitchers, what does it take to make the big leagues? And I said, nobody wants to just make the big leagues. They want to stay in the big leagues. So is all this information and all this ability to spin it, to throw it harder, getting guys hurt? And is there more value in getting there but not having a long career than getting there and having an average career that's longer?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Unfortunately, to get your foot in the door today, there's a reason why people sit behind the backstop with radar guns. They do it because that's how they judge initially how you get in. That doesn't mean that you constantly, always, once you're there, have to throw as hard as you can. And as a matter of fact, I think the trend now is to throw many, many different pitches because it makes it tougher for a hitter to hit. If they don't know what's coming, if you have 8 different pitch types and you can command them, that's as good as somebody just can blow you away with 103. And maybe a little less stressful on your arm. So you're seeing guys like Paul Skeens diversify his arsenal. He doesn't top out at 102 every game. He's backed off it a little bit, but can keep hitters off balance, throwing them a bunch of different looks. So I think you're seeing a lot of that to help people stay around. But in order to get in the door, the problem is if you don't light up a radar gun and a coach or a scout makes a bet on you, if you're wrong, if that scout is wrong, it's on them. It's their judgment that was wrong. If you lit up the radar gun and they said, this guy throws 102, we got to draft him, and the pitcher doesn't succeed, then the scout did what he was supposed to do, kind of, and the pitcher just didn't have it or broke down. So there's a little bit of a blame game going. And I think that goes on with analytics in general, but, I think I would love to see it come back to a little bit more gamesmanship. I have no problem with that at all.
Rob, in your book, earlier you just talked about how pitching analytics are ahead, and in your book, thank you. I got a line in your book, so I'll be expecting royalties at some point. Thank you. But I said it, and I've been saying this for years, that pitching analytics are so far ahead of pitchers. And in your book, it's kind of what I said. Like you can tell a guy, and the slow motion cameras just move your finger or do this or do that, and it changes everything about the way they throw the ball and the way the ball comes out of your hand. Is there any way for hitters to catch up? Because I mentioned the trajectory machine, but you talk to organizations, they don't love it. They don't say it's the best thing in the world. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool gimmick. But how do hitters catch up to what pitchers are doing? Because hitters don't have slow motion cameras. Every swing is a little bit different. Every pitch is a little bit different. There's not a perfect swing, right? So how do hitters catch up to what pitchers are doing? Because it doesn't seem like it's possible.
It's really hard because baseball's a weird sport. The offense doesn't have the ball. Like the pitcher really is on offense and the hitter's reacting. The hitter's a counterpuncher. So I think that's what makes it tough is that if I'm a pitcher, ideally I should be able to spin the ball the way I want, put it where I want, throw it as hard as I want. And I know the heat map of the hitter, so I can put the ball exactly where that hitter's weak spot is. I think the way for hitters to catch up, number one, trajectory does help in seeing a nasty pitch over and over again. So you might be able to make that pitch a little less nasty when you see it. So that might help. But I think other things like potentially AI and picking up pitch tipping or something like that. If a hitter knows what's coming, he's got an advantage. And if you can just like, if there are guys who tip, I think it would be very useful to do things like that. Doing your homework, looking at your own scouting report against you, even different bats for different pitchers. You could do stuff like that. But in the end, pitchers, I think, are always going to have somewhat of an advantage.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Who's the pioneer of this? You mentioned a few people early on in your book about Tom House, Nolan Ryan, and not one of them individually, but how they all got together and helped each other, going to Randy Johnson, helping him. And then even you mentioned later on in your book about like a Trevor Bauer who has, kind of gotten a little bit of backlash. But who do you feel like is the pioneer of this development age? And then who do you feel like is doing it the best right now?
So you nailed it with Tom House. I think Tom House was the first person to ask why. He saw Nolan Ryan and he saw Sandy Koufax and he's like, these guys are just people. Why are they doing what they do? How did they go about this? So he broke it down, built his own biomechanics lab in his house, cost him his marriage, used to look at pictures all the time and try to figure out what does what. So he is really the start of this whole thing. Guys like Kyle Bodie at Driveline took it to the next level. I mean, he's got an engineering background, so he started looking at stuff from a engineering or computer programming sense, step by step. And you're right. Bauer took it into the clubhouse where, like him or not, and I understand obviously the backlash, but he certainly did break down a lot of barriers, weighted balls, high-speed cameras, Rapsodo, just training, biometrics and training and all that. Like the game, there's a little bit of debt owed to him as where the game is today, that pitchers are now taking for granted. Someone like Paul Skeens has really perfected. He's taken a lot from a lot of people. If you watch his warm-up, throwing footballs, that's a Tom House thing. He's got a connection ball. That's a Ron Woolforth type thing. So he's got a lot of different drills that he does. I think he has perfected it. He's also perfected the personality that goes along with it because he doesn't rub people the wrong way. He's a competitor that goes in, listens, synthesizes information, and goes out and competes. And I think that's kind of, to me, my perfect pitching model. There's no perfect, but he's kind of where that goes.
Perfect pitching model is the one that stays healthy, has success for 20 years, and then he's the anomaly, not the norm. We are seeing all of this, all this technology. Every bullpen guy or every bullpen has a guy that throws 100, throws 99 miles an hour. If you're not throwing 97 in high school, blah, blah, blah. But why do we not ever reach where Aroldis Chapman was? Why do we not ever, we're peaking out. Is there something in the future that's going to get us to that 107, 108 category?
Likely so, but I can't promise you they won't break down if they do that. Because as you know, as a competitor, as an athlete, you're trying to you redline your body, right? You're fighting through stuff. If you see a number attached to you, you're going to try to achieve it and beat it. That is just what you do as a competitor and an athlete. So you're always going to push your body as far as it can go. No matter what that number is, you're going to want to eke out a little bit more. So I think you're always going to run into that ceiling. The key is knowing your body. There may be technologies that can keep you healthier, understanding that rest is important and recovery is important and monitoring that. But will pitchers continue to break down? Yeah, probably until you'd have to tell what the weak point was before it would break. And, maybe like car monitoring systems, that warning light comes on. I think we have stuff that's being developed, but that's going to be the main problem.
A guy who seems to be in a development crisis is Roki Sasaki. What can he do? What tools does he need to figure out to get to where people thought he would be once he came over to the major leagues?
He has a little bit more complicated mechanics than someone like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is as streamlined as can be. I also think some of it is almost overthinking his mechanics, to me at least. Listening to every interview, every time he struggles, it seems to be Well, it was my mechanics were off. I did this wrong. I did that wrong. Most pitchers don't lose command because of their mechanics. They're losing command because of a focus type thing or not understanding where their misses tend to be. It could be a variety of different things. But I think if you start feeling like you have to be at 100% mechanics wise and physical wise every game to throw strikes, it sets up a spiral where all of a sudden something goes wrong and then it goes wrong again and goes wrong again. I think he's in a situation now where when he starts throwing balls, he starts throwing pitches out of the zone, it starts getting in his head and he starts trying to make adjustments and he just can't do it. Sometimes you have to figure out a way to compete through it. And it's not always a mechanical thing. Good call with the Roger Clemens body type, because there is a lot of that. And people don't think of it like that because he's kind of a goofy guy on the mound sometimes. Like he's happy. He's a fun guy. He's a nice dude. But yeah, he is absolutely built. The other guy is Paul Skeens, standing next to him. I mean, I feel like I'm that big.
All right. We're going to do this like Michael Jordan Space Jam. Like if you had to pick one pitcher to save the planet, who would you pick to pitch that game?
So this is a tough question because if we're talking one inning, I'm going with Mason Miller.
Sure.
If we're talking a whole game and it's against humans, I'm probably going Paul Skeens or Yamamoto if we have short rest.
Wow.
But
okay,
if we're pitching against aliens, I'm going Shohei Ohtani because I am not convinced he is human.
Yeah, I saw you had the caption on your video that you posted from him last night. You and I are talking on Wednesday morning, and on Tuesday night, he struck out 11 guys.
In 4 innings. And I am not so I saw him in the Tokyo Dome and I saw him take BP and I sat in the upper deck and there were balls flying over my head. And I was like, I've never seen anything like that. And then you see him pitch. And I think we can never lose sight of the fact that this guy is on another plane from the rest of the MLB guys. He is way up here. And I know we love to tear people down or somehow get bored with their excellence. Never get numb to this guy. It is absolutely crazy to watch a dude strike out 11 dudes in 4 innings in MLB baseball.
Yeah, you feel like a hyperbole king when you say he's the greatest player who ever played. I don't even think it's a question. Like I've actually, when I've done some radio stuff, I've gotten pushback or people like, really? You think he's better than Babe Ruth or whatever name they might throw out there? I'm like, yeah, and it's not even close. It's not even a conversation. He obviously is doing what he's doing as a hitter, and he's talking in spring training about maybe winning a Cy Young award. And I got to say, when I heard that, I was like, nah, that's stupid. He can't win one. He needs the extra rest. He's not going to pitch the 32 games typically the way a school does. But then the more that I think about it, and the more, I see video like yours from his outing on Tuesday night, I kind of wonder if he might be able to do it.
Does he not have, he has the stuff to be a Cy Young Award winner. I don't think there's any doubt, inning for inning. The question is how many innings he pitches. And if he gets there, there's a chance he can get close to the number. And if he puts up enough, good enough stats, I think you got to strongly consider him. Obviously, Skeens is, I love Paul Skeens. I think Paul Skeens is kind of a lot of what's right with pitching. He does things the right way. He carries himself the right way. But Shohei is absolute freak.
Yeah, he is. And to your point, let's say he makes 26 starts this year. If he goes 6 innings per start, which I think would probably be on the high end for what, because the Dodgers' message to their pitchers is just go out and throw the shit out of the ball for as long as you can, and then we'll come and get you when your stuff goes down, regresses. Let's say he gets 156 innings. He wouldn't qualify for the ERA title. And I would be curious to see how voters feel about that when they, cast their vote for that award. All right. So your new book, I think that you could, it's called Unhittable, for those that didn't remember from my previous introduction. It is absolutely, at heart of it, is the quest for information, the quest for greatness. How did you come up with the idea?
So I really wanted to give a shout out. I coached, I've been on social media for forever, it seems like. And I kind of get asked the question a lot, why are pitchers different today? What has happened to pitching? Why are pitchers dominant? Are hitters just that bad? what's going on. So I kind of wanted to go through, juxtapose what pitchers used to do versus what they're doing today and how they've been engineered for greatness today. How we can control, we can teach velo, we can teach pitch design, we can have heat maps that show where to throw the pitch on the hitters, look at deception, all sorts of things that we can do now that make pitchers kind of on another plane, but also understand that pitchers, of the 60s and 70s, if they had this information, they could have been at another level too. I mean, we could have seen an even better Tom Seaver, for example. So I kind of wanted to give credit to the past and also give credit to the people that have helped me get where I've gotten. I've had, kind of the good fortune to be among some of the leaders in this new age of thinking, like Kyle Bodie, Ben Brewster, Alan Jaeger, Brent Strom. I've learned from these guys kind of firsthand, and I wanted everybody to kind of understand the people behind where we got, as opposed to just the technology, really seeing the people and what it takes. Like these guys, a lot of these guys weren't even involved in baseball. They weren't baseball players, but yet they've had such a huge impact on the game, like Barton Smith, the seam shifted wake. Like we have guys that didn't play, but that changed the game forever. And I wanted to give kind of a spotlight on them.
Yeah, that built-in ambition was always there, right? I mean, for years it was pitchers having conversations with peers about, or just tinkering with the way they were holding a baseball, where they're thinking, that changeup is just not as good as I want. How can I do it differently? But now that those adjustments are built on more specific information, and there's no question that those guys back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and before that, they're swimming upstream against the general feeling in baseball that change can't be good. I mean,
totally.
That dominated the sport, which is why, and I'm so glad, you have a lot in your book on Tom House, who I don't know if you agree with me here, but I think when we talk about how we got to where we are today, to me, he is a crossroad figure in baseball history.
Totally. That's why I led off with him in the book.
Yep.
And I've gotten to know Tom really, really well. Great guy. He wasn't an amazing baseball player, but he was always in the right place at the right time and asked a lot of questions. He didn't want to know, like, this guy was great. Hey, Nolan Ryan's great. Well, we can see Nolan Ryan's great. What makes Nolan Ryan great? Why? He's a person, so let's uncover other things. Built the first biomechanics lab, used to study still frames of pitchers. He's like a crazy scientist. And yes, I think he is kind of like patient zero for this whole change. Like he started asking the questions, and then we had other guys come in with, other thoughts on it. But yes, I agree with you. Tom House is the man.
Who do you think has been most important to get to where we are now in terms of post Moneyball? Because I mean, that clearly fueled a lot of the conversation in the sports too. Like, how can we do this better? How can we be more efficient? How can we have a growth mindset?
Yeah, it kind of takes a village, because I can say I can pick out individuals and give them credit for it. Kyle Bodie has done a ton at Driveline of asking questions, and he didn't, looking at it from an engineering standpoint, because he's a very math-minded, computer programming-minded guy. Well, how do we solve this problem step by step and take it apart like it was a programming issue, as opposed to just looking at it, right. It used to be either you had it or you didn't. Either you can throw hard or you couldn't. Either you command the ball or you couldn't. You can throw a curveball or you couldn't. And now we can decipher it thanks to guys like Kyle.
Yeah, and it used to be that, a pitching coach, and it's funny to think of it now, particular improvements were tied to particular pitching coaches. Mel Stottlemyre, who was a great pitcher with the Yankees and a coach later on, he was known for teaching the sinker. Right?
Yep.
Dave Duncan, had some of that. Among the adjustments that you, heard stories about during your research for the book, what's a favorite adjustment that you heard from a pitcher?
From a pitcher, all right, my favorite is talking to Chris Sale at the All-Star game. And Chris Sale.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Sale is an old school pitcher who I don't think, I can't even imagine him with a science book. Like he just is grit. Like that dude is as old school as they come. And he starts talking to me about seam shifted wake. And he's like, they told me to hold my changeup this way and kind of feel like I'm cutting it. And then it would, and he said, I looked at the coach like he had 5 eyes, and I started doing it, and my pitch started taking off, and it's because of this seam shifted wake stuff. And he said, I don't have any idea what that means, but it makes my pitch move like crazy. So I started doing it. And I'm like, I never thought I'd hear those words from Chris Sale.